So she called me Mr. Carter, which is, I mean, like, my voice is deep, I get it. I was like, oh, actually, it's Miss Carter. And she's like, oh, sorry.
And all I had to do is change my voice and boom.
Ow! Does it feel to live my dream?
My name is Diddy. I am non-binary. My pronouns are she, they.
Okay guys, I think you can tell what we're doing today. We're gonna be reacting to crazy gender TikToks, and without further ado, let's get into it.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Guys, before we get into this video, I'd like to give a shout out to all the people who have decided to become patrons so far on Patreon. It really is how we fuel the work that we do on this channel. So if you'd like to support us, the link is in the description down below, but no pressure. Now let's get to it.
I am a non-binary middle school special education teacher, and only my two paraprofessionals know that I'm non-binary, because that's not like a conversation I want to have with parents and admin right now. Anyway, one of my students said that I was a beautiful king the other day, and that was just so affirming. It gave me the gender euphoria. Have a good day.
A few things to unpack. I think what this person may or may not have been saying is that they don't go around telling their students that they're non-binary. And notice how I'm using the correct pronouns. We'll see how long I can keep that up throughout this video. I don't know about it. But, you know, clearly this is a woman who is deciding to identify as non-binary, which has its own issues. But at the very least, if I interpreted that correctly, I'm glad that they're not telling the students that they are non-binary and pushing that onto them. However, if I was a middle school student in this classroom, or I was a parent who was sending my middle school student to a classroom like this, again, it wouldn't last for long. I don't think this is a great role model for children in particular, especially if you get gender euphoria by simply being referred to as king. I feel like you might have some other deeper set issues that you should have to deal with before becoming an official influence on young minds in a middle school classroom. And that's just me. I'm curious how you guys feel about that. If you brought your student to school and you found out that their teacher was non-binary or trans or whatever, would you be vibing with that? Would that be something that's fine so long as it's not discussed in the classroom? Or would you be advocating that your daughter or son be moved to a different classroom? I'm gonna be honest, I probably haven't moved to the different classroom. I'm already planning on homeschooling or private schooling my future kids just so I don't have to deal with issues like this, and that it's not something that I have to constantly be worried about. But I'm curious how you would respond in a situation like this, because I'm leaning towards just not going through all the back and forth and the strife and just having them moved to a different classroom where I know this is not going to be a concern. Next. So this one says, just came off my first period. They are hell, but worth it as I'm becoming more happy each day. I'm so living my best life and becoming more of a beautiful woman each day. I know who I am, and I'm only getting more confident, more happier, more myself each day. Trans women are women. I don't want to step on anybody's happiness or what they're claiming to be fulfilling and making them happy, but I can also guarantee you that this person has not just gotten through their first period, as that is physically impossible. If you are a biological man who is intending to transition to be a woman, you will in fact not be getting a period. And I know this is claimed by a lot of different trans advocates and activists all over the internet, and those who are sort of cosplaying the womanhood experience. They think that simply because they're on hormones, now they're experiencing something tantamount to what we experience every single month when we're menstruating. And I can guarantee that that is not the truth. And if you were a biological man transitioning to become a woman who is getting period-like symptoms, you should probably ring up a doctor, because I can promise you that something else is going on, and that would be deeply concerning from a medical standpoint. But it's actually very enlightening to see people like this talk about their experience of becoming a woman in this way, because it just goes to show you how they view women. And it's actually extremely misogynistic. They distill womanhood down to wearing a wig, putting on makeup, putting on women's clothes, and then complaining about having gone through a terrible period. That's what they think women are, that's what they think we do, and that's what they think is the keystone of the female experience. And if that does not scream misogyny to you, I don't know what does. I'm all for somebody feeling happy and confident as long as it's not an encroachment onto other people. And for me, this crosses the line. It's just not based in reality. It's not based in science. And it is so trivializing to the female experience as it stands today. Next, I think this one is a coming out video. Let's see.
My name is Diddy. And I'm non-binary. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm queer. And this is me officially coming out. Oh my God. This feels really good. My name is Diddy. I am non-binary. My pronouns are she, they. Wow, it feels really...
I mean, I don't know about you, but from watching that video, I did not get the sense that that feels very good to this individual. And to me, this was a little concerning to watch. I don't know if any of you felt that way. Now, it says in this video, this is a repost from 2 years out, and says updates. My pronouns are now they, them, still queer, still pan, still poly. It's interesting that we're encouraged to affirm blindly these people in their identities as soon as they tell you this is what I am. My pronouns are she, they. But then, you know, a couple years later, the pronouns change to they, them, and things shift and change. And maybe 2 years down the line, this individual named Diddy may have a completely different experience of gender and queerness and pronouns. And then we are still meant to blindly affirm that. Now, I do feel for this person. It seems like this is a very emotional, possibly cathartic experience for them, which means that they've struggled deeply with who they are as a person, with their identity, coming to terms with themselves, loving themselves. And I hope that's where they're at now in their journey. Although when it's mixed in with this sort of gender theory, gender ideology stuff, I find it very hard to believe that this is coming from a position of being comfortable with who you are. When in fact, changing your pronouns, taking on all these different identities seems to me and signals to me that you are running away from who you are as an individual. And I gotta say this, is coming out of the closet really that big of a deal anymore that it takes on this sort of emotional response? I get that it's a difficult thing to go through, to struggle with your identity, to not know who you feel like or who you are, but oh my goodness, isn't everybody their mother and their brother non-binary these days? To me, what this video signals more than anything is not happiness and joy for this newfound identity of they, them, queer, poly, pan. It signals to me a much deeper mental health crisis, and one that centers around identity. The many places you have to be with your mental health in order to be considering all these different identities, shouting from the rooftops that you're non-binary, and then filming a video of you crying, coming out, and posting that on TikTok. There's just a lot going on there. And that seems to be a through line with all of these videos. It's one thing to grapple back and forth with who you are and who you want to be. It's another thing to film all of this and put it on the internet for everybody to see. But I guess that's just where we're at these days. Everything that happens in our lives at any given moment goes on social media. Anyways, next.
You know I look up right now? It's because I've been sobbing. I was just talking with customer support with my bank. I was calling about some bank stuff. The lady, like, was super nice. So she called me Mr. Carter, which is, I mean, like, my voice is deep, I get it. I was like, oh, actually, it's Miss Carter. And she's like, oh, sorry. And then she just proceeded to call me Carter. But she kept saying sir, and it is accidental, and she'd correct herself. But at some point during the call, I just started sobbing because, like, you know, the dysphoria has been a lot lately. I feel so bad because she heard me sobbing and she's like, I'm so sorry. I know how it feels, sir. I mean, ma'am. God. I don't blame her at all.
You know what? I just feel bad for, you know, this person and the others that we've seen, because this is a super big struggle to go through, to be fighting with yourself, fighting with your mind, and then fighting with reality constantly. And I can imagine that would make you really emotional, especially if you're putting so much weight on other people's language and what gender they refer to you as, whether or not they say sir or ma'am or she or he or they. That can be a lot of weight to carry. But instead of us treating this like what it is, which is a mental health issue which requires help and engagement and conversation and maybe some convincing in the other direction, we're deciding to blindly affirm people. And I know that there are many left-leaning activists who would listen to that TikTok that we just watched and think that the person on the other end of that customer service call is in the wrong for misgendering this individual, that she is in fact the one who needs to apologize, who needs to come to terms with his identity, instead of maybe that he needs to take stock of what his reality he is a biological male, and learn to move through the world in that way. And that doesn't mean that you can't express yourself freely, that he can't do his blue hair or paint his fingernails or wear whatever clothes that he wants. It just means that he needs to grapple with the acceptance of his self in the form that he was born in. Everything outside of that is free for expression. And when you do come to terms with that, I imagine somebody calling you sir on a phone call is not going to bother you whatsoever. How many times does the average cisgender person get misgendered in their lives? I've had people accidentally call me sir. I'm sure whoever you are watching right now, you've had people misgender you at some point in your life. Did it lead to tears and an outburst like this? I'd hope not. And if it did, to me, that would be a clear sign that there's somebody that you need to talk to, that you need to seek help of some form. And it's tough to see that these sort of thoughts plague the sweetest people. It seems like he was very understanding that this woman accidentally called him sir over and over and was sort of having trouble being in the position of a customer service person who's hearing a male voice on the other end of the line. But he should share some of that compassion and understanding that he has for the woman on the other end of that call with his own body. And yes, I mean the body that he was born in. And to be honest on that one, I just wish him the best. I hope that he gets on the other end of this and he starts to understand himself more, and that he can go through average things like phone calls and customer service calls without interruptions like this. Okay, guys, you've made it through with me. We have one more. Let's see what we find on the other end of this one.
How does it feel to live my dream?
It says trans women that are cis passing. And for those of you who need a translator on the lefty language, I can interpret that for you. It means trans women who look like biological women. So biological men who are transitioning, and they're so good throughout their transition and their feminization and all this stuff. And there are quite a few trans women that are cis passing. They are men that have gone through feminization and all these different surgeries to where when you look at them now, sometimes you can't tell whether or not they're a woman or a man. And presumably this person is jealous of the trans women that are able to pass in that way.
If I see any of you bitches come for this woman like what she's saying is invalid, I will smack you across the face. Let's be real with one another. Passing as a trans woman, pretty privileged. I don't know within any community, within the trans community, within the trans femme community, pretty privilege is the difference between what will save someone's life and what will lose someone's life, or what will get someone a job and what will get someone a job, or what will get someone accepted, if that makes sense. Ever since I started to pass, I can't even begin to talk about how it's made my life so much easier, and it's made me have more access to things that some trans women will never have access to. And it's such a privilege because it's effortless for me, because naturally I have very feminine features or female characteristics. And all I have to do is change my voice and boom. If you paid for it or it's effortless, admit it.
You know what? I actually don't disagree with much that was said in this last video, other than the fact that this person is claiming to be a woman, and we know that that is not the case, but I digress. You know how I feel about that. If you were going to be a trans woman or a trans man, I imagine the best version of that you could be is one that is passing so that people don't really know that you've transitioned. I think very few get that opportunity or have the facial characteristics, the body characteristics, and especially the voice to make that happen. But those that do, I imagine, are considered to be pretty lucky within the trans community. For example, we could compare the trans woman at the beginning of that last TikTok with somebody like actress Hunter Schafer, who is very much a passing trans woman. Hunter Schafer is probably going to get more opportunities, is going to be seen more often as a woman, is probably going to have to deal with being misgendered far less than a trans person who cannot pass as the gender that they've chosen. And you can be mad that that's the reality or try to call it out and change things, but I think that's always going to be the reality. It's just wild to me that we're even in a time where we're talking about these things or considering them, or people are going through transition to the point where we can't decipher whether or not they are male or female. But hey, it's 2023 and that's where we are. So let's talk about it. Pretty privilege, or the privilege of beauty or passing, is something that has existed and will always exist. And of course, it takes different forms as time progresses, and different things come in and out of style when it comes to beauty and attraction. But it's there nonetheless. If you meet the standards of the time, you will be rewarded in kind. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. It's just the way things are. And I guess the trans community has their very own version of pretty privilege. And I think we can test this in real time. I bet if you asked a room of 100 people which bathroom they think Blair White should go into, many of them would say Blair should go into the female bathroom. But if you ask that same group of 100 people which bathroom Leah Thomas should be going into, I think you'd have far fewer choosing the female bathroom. And that's because passing can be a bonus. That's simply the way things are, and I imagine the way that they're going to remain. And that was our last TikTok, guys. If you sat through all of this with me, I commend you. I'd also encourage you to leave a comment down below about how you felt about the different videos that we've watched today. As always, I encourage healthy debate, so duke it out, but do so respectfully. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a video for you guys, and especially when it's one of these wild TikTok videos. And I will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.